Happy Sunday. This is Asia on America on IntellectualRadio.com. I'm your host, Asia Shakur, aka Hood Oprah. It is Women's History Month, and I have two phenomenal women on the show today. I have my cousin in love, Kashawn,
Hello, hi.
and I have my sister in love, Dee, calling in from Maryland.
Hey.
So before we get off into the show, like I said, this is Women's History Month. International Women's History Day has its starts in 1919. It was not re-executed in America until 1965 in California when they wanted to do a women's walk. And there was a representative, I can't think of her name right off the top of my head. She said that a walk wasn't enough and felt that it needed to be like a week-long celebration. Women's history is celebrated all over the world in March, and it is an annual observance to highlight the contributions of women to events in history and society. So last year I did a brunch. It was on my mother's birthday, and I like to, put on phenomenal women in March just to let them know that their contributions to the world are much needed. This show is dedicated to my women in my life. They're gone. My mother, my grandmother, my godmother, everything that I am is because of what they sold into me a long time ago. So I just wanted to put that out there. Small business shout out before we get off into the show is Jay's Backyard Barbecue, 5604 West Division. They are open Tuesday through Saturday, 1 through 9. They have some great barbecue. I had been looking at this post on Facebook for the longest. I finally got over there. They got this Obama egg roll, and I don't know what was in it. I know it was some sort of type of beef, and it had peppers and some type of cheese. It was amazing. I mean, ooh, I'm gonna go back. So today on the show, I wanted to talk about literacy and leadership. We're in this age of technology, artificial intelligence, a lot of social media, and literature arts are becoming a thing of the past. I remember being in grammar school reading this book called Fahrenheit 451, where they
Mm.
talked about a distant, not so distant dystopian future where the firemen burned books. They would call the
Mm.
fires for them to burn books, and the lead firefighter, he would steal books, and he kept a collection in his house, and they ultimately hunted him down and killed him. And it's, to me, becoming that sort of world where books are becoming a thing of the past, and the best way to hide knowledge is from some person is in a book. So I wanted to expound on the importance of the literary arts with two great women. So Kashan, I'm going to go to you first.
Okay.
Give me an overview of literature and leadership in your words.
Oh, okay. Well, so literature and leadership to me, the two go hand in hand. I think in order to be a fantastic leader, you you want to expand your knowledge base, and what better way to do that through reading, um, through literature, through expanding your level of consciousness. And I think books are the easily most accessible way to do that.
D, give us some good old information about your overview of literature and leadership, calling from the DMV area. We appreciate you.
When I think of literacy and leadership, it's really the foundation of any kind of leadership, no matter what field of work that you're in, whether you're an engineer, working at McDonald's, in publishing. Literacy is very important. It's the keystone or the cornerstone to providing good leadership because it is the foundation of communication. A lot of times that when you're talking about customer service, much of your customer service is how you communicate with people. You learn how to communicate effectively through reading, through writing, literary analysis. All of those things come together to give you the foundation of being a good leader. And we often hear people complain about communicating with their supervisors and how people talk to you in emails. a lot of times that comes from people not knowing how to communicate effectively, or when they write something, they don't see two perspectives of how they wrote something. So they don't see what the problem is. But when you're a person who reads or a person who writes, you understand like, okay, well, this can be interpreted this way. So let me find a better word to, or a more politically correct word, or something that will communicate exactly what I feel and not be interpreted in multiple ways. So I think that's how literacy and leadership can connect and can bolster one another.
While I have you already speaking, give me some of the importance of reading, writing, and creative thinking. It's easy for us, as us three women, to sit here and speak about it from just a great point of view, because we're both, all three of us, excuse me, love to read. It's, we're
Mm-hmm.
avid readers. You both are writers. I do some poetry here and now. I do my little freestyle rap, sometimes. So it's easy for us to sit here and speak about it because we're impassioned about it. While I have
Mm-hmm.
you right now, give me some of the importance of reading, writing, and creative thinking.
So I'm really going to go from the perspective of when I was a teacher, because I also taught ninth grade and 12th grade English. And when you're talking to this generation, they want to know the whys. Like, we're used to going to school and you just do it because you're told to, or you just want to get good grades. You don't want your parents on you. But these kids want to have more of a conversation about, you really need to give me my why, like motivate me, And so one of the things that I try to show them is how it applies in their real life, in their everyday life. No, you're not going to do literary analysis and do novel readings every day, but what the skills that you're getting from doing these things overlap into your everyday life, like reading contracts, or you're trying to buy a car and trying to understand what that means, or when you interact with people in different areas, you may not know everything that they're saying, but you can use context clues. You can break it down. It exercises your brain to apply it in other areas. But reading houses information. It helps you with your comprehension, helps you with application. It helps you with decision making. It also helps with brain function. The hippocampus houses our memory and learning. And so when we're reading and writing, that actually strengthens that part of our brain. And it actually has a neurological effect. We don't realize that when we're writing, physically writing, not just digital, we're transferring into this digital age, but physically writing on paper actually strengthens your brain. And research shows that it activates different parts of your brain. So when we're trying to grow healthy in our minds, when you're reading and writing, that does that. And it also is going to help you as you age, because we know that we struggle with memory loss, and you're trying to make sure that you can stay cognitively strong. Reading and writing actually helps you as you age. And it helps you in other areas of your life. It's not just taking your English class. It's not just entertainment, but it's an all around kind of thing. And actually, when you work your brain, your brain is a muscle. So when you're working your brain and reading and writing, it grows millimeters. It actually grows just like the muscles in your arm.
Now, Dee, when did you become a scientist? Because what is going on?
I'm very, I'm really into like psychology and neurology, and I want to know, like, why do I need this? So again, it helps. It really does help the health of your brain. It makes it strong. It strengthens your memory. It strengthens your cognitive ability, and that way you can also, like I said, you also know when somebody's trying to get over on you, or they're trying to use semantics to convince you to do something. You're like, no, I understand what you really mean. because you have the key to communication. And so
Let me
that's that's why I think it's the importance of reading and writing.
let me get Kashan's viewpoint on this. The importance of reading, writing, and creative thinking. What are some of the effects that you feel that this, has over us as people?
Absolutely. So, coming from a creative standpoint, the thing that I love when it comes to reading in particular is eh, reading almost always becomes a gateway towards that creative way
Mm,
of thinking. It gives you more perspective, it gives you more avenues. And then, when you couple that with writing, so uh, for me, it's not just what I read, but what I take away from what I have read. And
mm,
then, being intentional about, well, what can I apply? What have I learned? What have I gained? And again, expanding that creative sense of, now I've gained this essential body of knowledge. What do I want to do with it? How can I take that into the world? And I think that's just as important. And D, you mentioned a great point. We when we read, we expand, neural pathways that, probably would not have otherwise opened up. So when you're thinking, okay, I've just read, uh, you know, a book on creative thinking. So I do actually have a book that is on creative thinking, and one of it, the exercises talks about, drawing circles. And at first you're like, okay, I'm just drawing circles. Well, wait a minute. After you've done this, and it pulls out a reframe, right? So now instead of drawing circles, connectively together, maybe you make a square out of them. That's something new, that's something different, and so I've gained that. And then now how else can I expand that into the world? And I think it opens things up just in a way that would not have otherwise done so.
Tell me about the journey into writing. I'm going to bounce back and forth off the last question, piggying back to each of you ladies.
Yeah.
So tell me about the journey that got you to writing, got you to creative arts, got you being able to take from reading to now picking up the pen and putting your thoughts to paper.
Mm,
mm,
that's a that's a great question. So I think for me it was understanding that, I love reading. I have a general passion for reading, but that reading is so very intentional. So it used to be where, you meet somebody, and after a couple conversations, the typical is, oh, I read this book, you got to read it. And it became this cycle of just taking in material, taking in context, taking in things, which is all helpful in itself. But then when I put a little bit of intentionality to it, so what does that mean for me? And then picking, self selecting things to read that expand my level of consciousness in a way that is helpful to what it is that I'm looking to do, what it is I'm looking to put out into the world. Once I felt good in that, the next bridge was, okay, now what is the thought leadership that I want to put out? What is it that I want to say? What is it that I want, to come out of my legacy, the thing that I'm doing here? And being that I'm in the realm of public speaking, one of the things that really become important is that thought leadership, that established credibility. So for me, it was just a no-brainer essentially to go in and write my own creative body of work.
D.
what got me into writing started in second grade, actually. Um, my teacher announced there was a creative writing contest. And I had no idea what she meant by creative writing, but my insides just leaped. For some reason, it just connected with the word creative writing. And so I went home and I asked my mom what was creative writing. What does she mean by that? And she's like, oh, that means that you can write a short story or a poem. And she went through this list. And I was like, a poem sounds like what I want to do. And so I wrote a poem about my cat and I won first place in the contest. And then I won second place in the district. And that ignited my desire to write, and that I could tell stories. And as as I continued to get older, I just had a love of words, and certain words just connected with me. And I'm like, oh, I like the way that sounds. And then I try to incorporate it in my everyday language. And then hip hop came around, and I'm like, wow, they're so clever in their storytelling. And so I'm like, when I could pick out different types of vocabulary, that excited me. And then being able to tell my story in short stories, or also it is cathartic. Journaling is cathartic. And so I started keeping a journal since 90 something. And I didn't realize how much it helped me work through different issues in my life. So I journal, I write stories, I write poetry, and I tend to write poems that I feel, so to speak, set the captives free. And I think that we go through different things in life or different experiences in order to share it with those other people, in order to help them step over these different challenges that we have in life. And so I feel like writing is also, it opens up our minds, and it also opens up to a way of freedom of things that would have ordinarily entrapped us into sadness or feeling like we can't get out. So
Yeah, Dee, you spoke on something about being in second grade, and I was a young author. They had that at my school as well, and I used to write, and it captivated me as well. English and writing and spelling were some of the best subjects ever. I had a really great teacher, my fourth grade teacher. Her name was Miss Garnett. Black lady. She taught us how to how to play chess. She would put a word on the board every day, like the word that sticks out to me the most is onomatopoeia. I had never heard that
Yes.
word before. And she would put these words on the board for us to learn to use in sentences. And she really gave us hard books to read at fourth grade, like 10th grade level books to challenge us. And just like you said, finding these words, and I would read these books and have a thesaurus next to me so I can understand the word, get the interpretation, because a dictionary can give it to you, but a thesaurus like gives you different variations, so you can put it into however you compute your knowledge. And then I will put it back into the sentences. I was just telling Kashan in the green room, like I can just be talking and I'll just spew out these words, and I'll be like, where did I learn that from? And I have to think about, all the reading that I've done, that I continue to do. I don't watch TV. Reading books really transforms me into a different world.
It does.
I mean, watching television, that's a good pastime, but that's that interpretation of a person and how they envision the script that they've read or the book that they've, adapted this from. When my mother was alive, she was an avid Stephen King reader. We would read Stephen King, and then we would look at the movie to see the parallels, to see if it captured that way. And the books were just always so much better. So I want to talk about you ladies' published works. I have Kashan here. She's here with her book, Voices of the 21st Century. Dee, I know you have some published works as well. Tell us a little bit, Dee, about some of the published works that you have, and then we'll bounce back to you.
Sure.
I have published a couple of poems, and I'm currently working on a guided journal that really started from turning 40. Once I turned 40, and I thought people were making this up.
Girl, this 40 stuff.
I thought people were like really making this up, like, girl, you tripping. Okay, whatever. And so when I turned 40, I really did feel like a switch. It felt like something happened in my brain that just switched to something else.
Absolutely.
And when I learned, also being a teacher, I learned so many things as a teacher, that we do go through these stages of psychological stages that are connected to age. And so like, when we're teenagers, the coming of age story, the reason that seemed to resonate so much is because actually every young person in the world is going through a identity stage. They're trying to establish their identity. And so when you get to 40, you're not establishing your identity. You're reflecting on who you have been. Like, did
That
I
was
do
That was
good.
enough?
good. That was deep.
Yeah.
That was
So
deep.
it's almost like it's a mirror to when you're a teenager, you want to know, who am I? Who will I be? And when you're 40, you're trying to figure out, who am I through all the things that I've done in my life. And so I started writing prayers to God, honest prayers. And I feel like sometimes we feel like we have to go before God sounding like people in church, or it has to have this particular formula. And so, or we feel like, I can't tell God that, as if he don't know. Like,
Absolutely.
if he's
Say
supposed
that
to be
again.
everywhere, he know it. So you could just be real with him. Say it like you say it. And so there is, again, when I say the freedom of journaling, there is a freedom in saying, hey, God, I feel jealous. People don't want to say that, like, because it comes with a stigma, or, ooh, you jealous of someone. Maybe you are. Maybe maybe it's not intense, but I am jealous that this person, or I am jealous of the person that got the promotion instead of me. But there's a way to work through that in prayer. I've worked so hard. I stayed late. I did this, da, 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 da. And this person got the promotion, and I feel a way about that. But help me to temper my heart, to be able to celebrate this person. That is the way to work through it. You cannot work through something that you're not willing to admit that is there.
Absolutely.
And your accountability, when people call us accountability, I always talk about, oh, people don't want to be accountable. I don't necessarily have to be accountable to you, but I can hold myself accountable in private and grow in my closet, and come out and be authentic in my happiness and love, and continue to shine a light despite where I was, because some people don't want to let you live down mistakes, or some things that you may have said that you didn't really mean. But if you are honest with God in private, then you can work through those things. So
now that's what I've been
working on.
That's a good segue, because Kashawn's book talks a lot about that. So give me a little information about the voices of the 21st century, and hit some of those points that Dee spoke upon, because your book talks about those in length, correct?
Yeah, and some variation or another. So for the works of voices in the 21st century, one of the foundational premise is giving women permission. Giving women permission to be who they are, where they are, just as they are, right? And for me, the reason that I knew that was my pathway, something I wanted to be a part of, is because I needed a space where I could open up intentionally, and then really just vulnerably. And this writing gave me the opportunity to do that. And then when I grasped the scope that, hey, I'm not alone. I am on this journey with 44 other women that also have a story. And we connect through our stories. We connect through the way we resonate with one another. And each of these women talk about, you mentioned the art of turning 40. My God.
I did a whole show about it.
I mean, it's something, but you touched on a really good point, because at some point in our adolescence, we are where, who do I want to be? And it's more of that hopeful wishing stage. And then you realize at 40, it's like, who have I been? And am I okay with that? And is there something that I want to do differently? And I think that, when I wrote this, when I started on the project of voices, I was just kind of rounding the corner and getting settled in the 40. So I was just like, okay. For me, it was owning my truths. So my truths through grieving, through loss, through my own story and my own acceptance of what that meant. So we talk about literature. Well, there was a point in time where the only piece of literature that I was able to really read was the Bible, because I was searching for answers. I was searching for God, tell me that I'm not the only one. Tell me I am not on an isolated island, that this level of loss and misfortune has only happened to me. And so when I began to dig in and I wanted to find stories that mimic mine, I wanted to find answers and resources for things, my world opened up, and it led me into, this project of writing, of it's okay to share your story. Your story isn't for you, it's for everyone else to glean from what you've learned from it.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that really was the foundation of this project. I've gained so much knowledge and wisdom, just on this project with all these women, that makes me so proud. I feel honored to be a part of this project.
So I was at the laundromat today and I was talking to the laundry attendant, and we saw some young girls, and he was like, I don't mean no disrespect. He said, but what is going on with our young girls? He say
Mhm.
all of them looking like Nicki Minaj, they coming outside, they don't leave anything to the imagination.
Mm.
And, we talk about leadership and literature. And a lot of the leadership and literature that these young girls are receiving these days are in images and lyrics that are like turning them away from being, I don't want to say, because everybody has their journey, but turning them into something more different than what we are used to seeing now that we're in our 40s. We've all
Mhm.
been teenagers and we've gone through our angst to get where we are. But the new generation of women, they they don't have the same kind of thought processes that we do. How do we reach the young girls to empower them to write, to share their stories
Mm.
without having to feel ashamed,
Mhm.
without having to feel, ostracized from the world, because those girls don't do that? How do we reach a little girl who may be 12 years old in a classroom who wants to write but doesn't want to do it because her friends don't? How do we reach, a 18-year-old who's going through life and need her to journal so she can get? How do we reach that 35-year-old woman? How do we empower women to write their story so that they can grieve? Because I know for myself, I journal a lot. I'm jotting down things all the time in my phone, in my personal journal, and it's very helpful. How do we, as the aunties and the grandmothers, as they say, make this something that should be implemented in daily life so they can learn how to heal, how to voice themselves, how to, articulate a thought without it being
Mhm.
broken or stagnant or incomplete?
Mm. You want me to?
Anybody, grab the wheel.
Like,
Anybody.
I can speak to being when I was a teacher. I think too what happens is that people think when they're writing, especially in journaling, and talking to young people, that they feel that it has to be academic standard, or that you have to turn it in and it's going to get critiqued because it's not written in a particular way. But when it comes to young people, you have to meet them where they are and provide the right kind of space that allow them to express themselves. One of the ways that I did it in the classroom was I had this box, this black box that had like a lid on it, and it had like a slit. I made the box. And so what I did was make it a warm up. So when you come into class, you do a warm up. And so I told them it was an opportunity to say anything that they want. If you're having difficulty, you can write it on this card. If you're having a great day, write one sentence about how your day is going. This is your opportunity to say whatever it is that you want to say. That meant that if a student had an issue, they don't feel ostracized because they're the only ones putting something in the box. If someone had something good to say, even if it was a joke, they could just write it down, put it in the box. And I said, I won't open the box until we're done, until you go out of class. And I found out so many things about my students from that box. So I didn't make it an assignment, but it was an assignment.
Mhm.
And it gave them a space to be honest and open about whatever it was. And then then that gave me an opportunity to speak to the student about what was going on with them to the side or mention it in conversation. As that continued, then I could build a relationship. Most of the time, we don't want to take the time to build a relationship. We want to throw advice at them and then walk away and go on about our business. But we have to somehow build relationship. And the first interaction that you have with a young person or even an adult should not be a moment of critique. When you begin to offer advice, there should already be a relationship there. You cannot offer advice to people that you don't know, because they're automatically going to cut you off like, I don't know you. Yep. Who are you? Yep. There has to be an entry point of relationship. And then tell them that this is only a space for you to express yourself, for you to open up, and you can write it however you want. And so then that opens up the conversation to talk about other things, because then they're like, well, Miss Johnson or, Miss Kashan, seem like they know a little something about something, Yep. And then that starts opening the door to be able to advise them and to show them how writing can be a tool. And then you can get some great things out of them. But it really starts with building a relationship, and it could be, and not just trying to connect with them on hip hop, because for some reason people think the only way to connect to young people is through hip hop. Sometimes it would be, I come in, I had got my lashes done or something. They be like, oh, Miss Johnson, you think you cute because you got lashes. I'm like, you got them on too? So that kind of thing. And so now we got a joke, and then you can start building a relationship that way. So just being authentic with them, and then slowly introducing things to them. That's how we even teach. We teach things in sections and parts. You have to be patient in that relationship. So,
Kashan, what do you have? I mean, because your book talks a lot about empowerment for women. So what are some things that you can pull, that you can feel to say, to give young women, young girls the empowerment feeling to, write, to journal, to release some of those feelings that they may have pent up?
Sure. So I think Dee nailed it, right? It starts with the relationship. And I think we browse over that part and not realize how very important that is. And that the more I understand so I, being socially present, I'll say that, right? I'm often greeted with women from all ends of the spectrum. And I have seen the younger generation, and they're dolled up, and they've got the lashes, they've got the hair. I mean, they look incredible. And then when I sit and we're building this relationship, we're building this rapport, we're building, just what is it that's underneath that? What's behind it? The one thing that they say is this is just a part of my brand. It's a part of my identity. And to own that, and not for me to feel like that's my place to now correct you or tell you that there's something wrong with that, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But now let me get to understand why you feel that's your entryway into your brand, into your way of being, and why that's important. And then now we can look at, okay, so what do you do when you don't have the makeup on? What do you do when you're not wearing the lashes? How do you feel about yourself? Where are you putting all that? Where's that storage going? And a couple of them, they've asked me, they say, well, what do you do? But we have that relationship established where they can ask that question. And I'll show them before I ever tell anyone a message, before I ever put anything out as advice or what you should do. I make sure that I walk the walk. So I'll show them, these are my journals. This is where I clear my brain. This is how I process my thoughts. This is how I'm going through the things that I'm going through, and this is how it has helped me. And then they say, oh, well, Kashan, what about you? You've gone through so much grief. How did you get through that? I said, through journaling. And I didn't always accept it at first. I remember I had some conversations where I was so against it because I didn't see the value in it. And it was someone telling me, you should journal. Why? why is journaling important? And it wasn't until somebody took me by the hand to show me the value, to show me the things that are to come through that channel way, that really helped in all these other areas. And that's what I just push forward and offer through mentorship and relationship building with our younger generation.
Women empowerment is so needed these days. We talk about it's this big man versus women dynamic that
Mm.
we have going on in social media. I don't know how it's instigated, the powers that may be, whatever, what have you. And of course, the cornerstone to our race stability is the two-parent family structure of the household.
Mm.
This voice is a 21st century women empowerment. How does that look? How does that feel, and how do we convey this? Because we know we have a lot of these brunches going around with these women, let's do this, let's do that. We got these self-help, we got these vision board parties, we got this, we got that. And how do we, per from your book, how do you put that stamp of empowerment on women to let them know that whatever you've gone through, whatever you're going through, whatever you're going to go through, you're going to be okay? Whatever society says about you, you're okay.
Mhm.
You're worthy. You're able. In this Women's History Month, how does your book help to convey those messages to sometimes a woman who may not know her way?
Oh, great question. So, the one thing that I will say this book addresses is it is empowerment, and it's empowerment from 45 very different perspectives. What I say is, you're going to pick up this book, you're going to read this book, and somewhere within the pages, you're going to find your story. You're going to find the thing that resonates with you. And when we're thinking about empowerment, it's giving permission. It's not stating that something is right or wrong. It's just, it's okay. And now that you have that permission, you've got a community. Because the one thing that you don't need to feel is isolated, like this is just happening to me and I'm in it by myself. And no, you're not. So when you get with, these bodies of works that offer, empowerment, that's your opportunity to dive in and say, what's in this for me? And when I first started the project, they released the manuscript, and I said, the first thing I'm gonna do, I need to connect with these women, because I want to understand what was their why for sharing their story. What was their why for sharing their journeys? And when I think about that, it often brings me to tears, because I'm engulfed in their story and I can see me in it. 45 very different variations. I can see me in each of those iterations of those stories. And it allows me to respect the process, the woman, and the work.
So, D, you I forget your title, but you work for Hearst and Wright Foundation, which is this
Mm-hmm.
incredible foundation in the Maryland area that delves deeply into the literature, works of art, and preserving literary arts and making reading a focal point. Tell us a little bit about that work and how you, moving from a teacher, as a poet, as a B girl, moving into this type of prestigious lane and getting this knowledge. How can you use what you are doing there to empower young women as well? But before you answer that, tell us a little bit about where you work at, because and enlighten my viewers and listeners who may not know about this foundation.
Okay, well, I'm the writing programs manager for the Hearst and Wright Foundation, which is a nonprofit in the DC area. The mission of Hearst and Wright is to discover, mentor, and honor Black writers. And the foundation was created by two founders, Marita Golden and Clyde McElvin. Marita Golden is a writer and professor, prolific writer and professor herself. And Clyde McElvin was a businessman, is a businessman that decided to get together to offer supports to Black writers. Because if you think about, well, this foundation was founded in 1990. If you think back to 1990 and you go into any bookstore, you know that Black writers or Black fiction or Black stories had this really, really small section
They did.
in the bookstore.
They did.
Yeah.
It wasn't as proliferated as it is now, but so they saw that there was a need, or a need for Black writers to be able to get their stories out and published, because there is, our stories should be honored, and there is a Black experience that wasn't being shared with the market. And so they got together to establish this foundation. And so we offer workshops. We have an awards program. We have readings, panels that support Black writers in every phase of their writing journey. So if you're an emerging writing, if you're a professional writer, we offer those supports in order to help you build your craft. The way that we honor Black writers is we have our legacy awards that happen annually, where writers submit their books, and we have judges who have gone through this journey, who are amazing writers themselves, looking over the books and judging them, and awarding people that have proven to be amazing, skilled writers. We also have, like I said, readings, panels that we offer to the public. And we also give like information in how to get your book. If you have a manuscript, how to get it to market. Do you want to self-publish or go the traditional route? All of the questions that people have regarding the publishing industry, we try to offer that support through our foundation. When this foundation started, we had amount of Black writers get together in order to see this organization really come to life. Everyone from Henry Louis Gates to Terry McMillan, Gloria Naylor, all have contributed in either sitting on the board or coming up with ideas of having this awards program. And really, it started with knowing that 90% of the people that's in the publishing industry, whether it's an editor or a developmental editor, the marketing person, are all going to encounter white people, 90% white. So if you have a story that maybe they can't relate to, or there's like some sort of gatekeeping, this foundation was the key or the answer to that roadblock for Black people to getting published. So that is what I'm doing at the foundation, is really the programming there. And the way that we reach young people is actually we just started an oral history, DC Youth Writers Oral History program. That its inaugural program started last year. And what we do is, excuse me, the young people come together to do research on Black writers that have been impacted by DC and also have impacted the literary community in DC. And they are taught research methods. They interact with the narrator, and then they create these multimedia projects that will live on in an archive. And in this way, we are creating an intergenerational relationship, because they're young people who get to talk to Black writers who are impacting the community as poets, as storytellers, as people who own bookstores, etc. And then hopefully developing a mentorship, and then igniting the desire to become a writer. So then it creates a pipeline, because as the African proverb says, that until the lion tells the story, the hunter will be the hero. Oh. So if Black people don't tell their stories, and we don't encourage young people to stay the storytellers, our perspective, our history, our lives will be in the hands of the hunter.
Girl, that was so good. Did they teach you that over there at Hurston Wright? Because that sounds like some good old Howard Hampton stuff, girl. That was good. So now we come into my favorite part of the show. It's called succotash. Succotash is a native dish. It's beans, it's corn, all wrapped up into one. It's the part of the show where you could talk about anything. It could be informative, it could be funny, it could be whatever you want. It could be on topic. It's the part of the show where I let the guests be at the helm. So I'm gonna start with my in studio guest. Kashawn, what you got for succotash for the people?
Oh, let me think. So I would say the thing that I want to encourage while we're here, while we're talking about literature and leadership, is don't let the ideas or the objectives stop here within this moment. Take them and move them forward, right? So now, what are you doing inside? Start small inside your home. What are you reading? Why are you reading? And then what are you writing about, and who needs to hear what it is that you have to say and to offer, and let that be good enough to get you started and to keep you going. I believe just writing heavily for 15 minutes every day. It's been a practice of mine now for about 2 years, and it doesn't matter. I mean, some days I'm writing on the sun shining and the angle that it hits the room in the house. It's like nothing is too small and nothing is too big, but it keeps those creative juices flowing. So I think that's what the main thing here is. Don't let what we're talking about stop here. What are you looking to take away from this that you can begin to apply into your world and every day to keep it real, to keep it in motion?
I like that. D, what's your succotash? Give me some succotash, ma'am.
My succotash is probably a couple things. Being a child of aging parents, or the child of a parent with a health scare. And I often tell people how I have four parents. I have a stepfather and a stepmother. Ever since I was 2 years old, so I don't know what it's like to just have two parents. I have four, and when you're younger, all of these extended family members, it's so great. You get to go over your grandmother's house and all the presents and the double birthdays and all these things. But then when they age and they're having these health issues, you feel like you're stretched so thin. And recently, my stepmother had brain surgery, and you talking about something that was so scary. But to wrap that into literacy, one of the things that I had to stand on is I have a scripture, a couple scriptures that I rehearse, and one is the faith scripture, whereas faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And so I kept listening to that to keep me supported while she was going through, and be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So staying focused on what I was thinking. So I kept thinking that great things were going to, great healing was going to take place, and also reminding myself of my faith. And that makes me think about how, when we're talking, many times we don't realize that things that we rehearse is getting down into our psyche, because that's how learning happens. And if you're listening to negative things all the time, even if you feel like it doesn't influence you or have an impression, it does, because that's the way the brain works. Anything that's on repetitive mode, it's in you. And so I'm like, I needed to stay strong, so I put it on repetitive mode to be in me. So if you want to transform, or if you want something that you want to achieve, you have to set the time to write it over and over again. If you're dealing with esteem problems, if you're feeling like you can't make it through, you need to write down what you believe you're going to see. If you have to write it over 1,000 times, do it. If you have to post it on your wall and read it every day, do it, because then it gets into you. If you don't believe it today, maybe tomorrow you would. But the more that you expose yourself to it, the more you will receive it.
So we're almost at the end, and I want both of you ladies to give out your social media handles, so that if somebody needs some sort of reflection or additional information about how to voice their voice. D, go ahead and get your social media handles out, please.
D Scribes on all platforms. DEESCRIBES.
That was just short and simple. Kashawn.
The best way to access me is through my website, nextstepforwardcoach.com. And I have my social media platforms active and on those linked up in my website.
So before we get out of here, I just want to say, thank you both to you ladies. Very, you know, podcasts are just all the rage these days, and they just run the gamut from celebrity gossip to, men versus women dating to whatever, what have you. And with the platform that I have on the station Intellectual Radio, I feel very, obligated to bring substance driven programming. Both of you ladies, I love you separately and independently for different reasons. And, I said to myself, once I had a platform, I would talk about the things that impassion me, things that move me, things that motivate me. I love to read. If anybody, has been following or listening, I always speak about how I love the creative arts, whether it's music, whether it's painting, where it's visual arts. That is something that is very important to me. And like I said at the top of the show, with the way that we're going into this, artificial intelligent future, I think that it's important for us to continue to write our signature. And I mean that in a metaphorical way as well. Write our signature, have our words being able to convey on, whatever it is. So happy Sunday. I thank you ladies for both coming in. It was a pleasure. I will both definitely have to give y'all in on separate times. An hour just wasn't enough. This is Asia on America on intellectualradio.com. I'm the Hood Oprah as always. I love y'all.